evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info, and welcome to Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race, where unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, wouldn't you believe it, Tyler Reddick has done it again. After winning the pole and only leading 10 laps, was able to capitalize on a late race restart after an intense battle there with Denny Hamlin in the closing stages, being able to pull off the victory. And so, again, a tremendous victory for 23XI for Michael Jordan and the folks over there, bringing another trophy back to Airspeed. A tremendous victory there, but not without some controversy. As the title indicates here, this was a race that was just as much about who was running in last place as who was running up front. And I want to kind of address this right at the very beginning of it here. And I certainly see Denny Hamlin's viewpoint here, where understandably he's upset. You know, it's just like the same thing that happened at Phoenix. Somebody blows a tire at the very end of the race and forces the race into overtime. And it does also remind me of the Emp Lemon video, which I will be discussing more tonight as well. I certainly want to get into that as part of today's show here. But Cody Ware himself was, you know, again, running on a different strategy, back of the field there, you know, was about 5 laps down, but we had no attrition in this race. Everybody that started this race was still running within about 5 laps of the leader, coming to the white flag there. And Cody himself had lit up his tires, to try not to run the back of Daniel Suarez there into turn 1. Actually did a really good job. He and his spotter were very heads up, listening to the radio there and preventing that from happening. So he could have had a pretty big accident at that point there, and a lengthy caution at that point. But in this case here, Cody was just hanging on to the end, coming off of turn 4, coming to the stripe. The right rear tire blew. He didn't just lose the car on his own. He wasn't making some ridiculous move or anything like that. The tire just blew. Stuff happens. And it just happened to happen coming right to the white flag. Denny Hamlin was driving right past the scene when it happened, put Ware a 6th lap down in the process. And, we got into an overtime finish. And as I said, again, we'll definitely discuss the Emp Lemon video there. There's fair criticism that could be pointed to the overtime system itself. It's not the only race that's certainly been spoiled with that. Certainly not the only one that Denny Hamlin's been involved in, for example. But, again, that could be something else that gets discussed along the line. But I want to nip this in the bud right from the beginning that, Cody Ware was not making some reckless boneheaded move. It wasn't some kind of, deliberate thing to bring out the caution or anything like that. And if there's any criticism of the system, you gotta criticize NASCAR on that one. You can't criticize the driver. So, ordinarily, if you had just a race to the caution flag, Cody spins out and, Hamlin drives right by him, completes the last lap, and then the race is over at that point. That could be something else that gets reevaluated there. So, kind of an unusual race in that sense. I mean, we did have Las Vegas a few weeks ago where we also had the entire field finishing within a few laps of the leader. Shane Van Gisbergen had a really rough day in that race and ended up many laps down. And indeed, in this one here, he also struggled in this one, ended up next to last place finisher by the checkered flag here, about 2 laps ahead of Van Gisbergen. And another interesting thing with this one, though, is much like we saw with Corey LaJoie at Richmond, I believe, a year or so ago, Cody Ware actually completed more laps than regulation. He completed 268 laps of the 274, I believe, that were completed by the leaders there as well. So kind of an extraordinary set of circumstances there too. But definitely setting a new record for most laps completed by the last place finisher. And again, this is still pending the results of post-race inspection. Of course, if a lead lap driver or pretty much anybody else in the field gets disqualified from this event for a technical infraction, you're going to have that record go up that much more because everybody else completed more laps than that. But as to the race itself, I feel like I've kind of said this in the last few of these between Bristol and Darlington and some of these others. Long green flag runs aren't really a bad thing. You can still have competitive racing out there. If listening to Colby Evans over at the racetrack there and saying that, how competitive this race looked from there, and then maybe it not translating that well to TV, well, that's TV's fault. They need to be able to make it more interesting, and find other stories to go through the field. I appreciate they actually did do it through the field of the lead lap drivers. when we had about 20 cars on the lead lap in the middle stages. They are trying things, but clearly they need to continue to try to do things to, again, keep things engaging as well. Because, yeah, we had a lot of strategies that were working out here, and it wasn't like one driver led all the laps. Even though Denny Hamlin looked about untouchable, at one point in this race, you still had other drivers that were up there contesting it with him there. And then certainly, of course, with the overtime finish, turned everything on its head at the same time there too. And at the end, yep, you had pretty crazy race at that point. Everybody's throwing it into turns 1 and 2 and just seeing that the cars would stick. Even Chase Briscoe with his 4 fresh tires getting up to a 3rd place finish there. But Kyle Larson looking like he was going to be able to pull off the upset there and get that dive bomb under Denny Hamlin there at the start. Ends up coming at 118 thousandths of a second short of Tyler Reddick there at the checkered flag. Again, Briscoe in the 3rd spot, Denny Hamlin in 4th, Bubba Wallace in 5th. 6th goes to Brad Keselowski, 7th to William Byron, Chase Elliott in the 8th spot, Ty Gibbs in 9th, your Bristol winner, and Chris Buescher in the 10th spot. Can reopen his Twitter account after all the video replays of the 2024 finish being played this past week. Christopher Bell, definitely the heartbreak of this race with having the fastest lap of the event and being a contender for the win, leading 47 laps himself, being right up there. Appreciate Tyler Reddick, speaking out, saying that he didn't really want to damage a fellow Toyota driver there, especially at the end, and having been on the other side of incidents like that. But, it remains to be said, I'm sure cold comfort there for Bell, who ends up with a 20th place finish after running well better than that the rest of this race here as well. Ryan Blaney in the first race with his new Jackman, after all the bad issues on pit road he's had at the beginning of this year, ends up having an altercation with AJ Allmendinger on pit road. Allmendinger crosses his nose, had some damage to the nose of his car. Blaney had to ultimately take a pit penalty at one point and finishes the race 1 lap down to the 24th spot. So still not a great day for the number 12 team. Just seemed off in this event here at the same time. Joey Logano, also after his tail end penalty before the race even started, really didn't recover very well from that. Ends up in the 30th spot, 2 laps down at the checkered flag, reminiscent of what we saw back at Darlington. AJ Allmendinger was in and around the last spot for most of this event, ends up with the 31st position there. Zane Smith, Ty Dillon, Michael McDowell, Kyle Busch, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Cody Ware, your last few drivers in the lineup. Pretty much all of them spent at least one moment or another in the last spot. I'll have to track down the actual number of last changes that we had in this race. It was quite a bit, especially down towards the end. It looked like maybe even Kyle Busch was going to have a mechanical issue. He expressed a problem with the brakes before, I believe, the restart to start the final stage, and ultimately did not go to the garage. Garage area was a ghost town this entire event, which is very different from what we saw in Saturday's race, which we'll, of course, get into here as well. But Cody Ware ends up being your last place finisher. But again, I'm sure he's going to get run through by everybody else talking about, what he did and what he didn't do. And, can you believe it? He lost it on his own. And it's like, no, look, again, stuff happens. He had a flat tire. If it happened a lap later, they probably wouldn't have even thrown a caution. He would have just passed by and the race would have just ended at the time. So, again, it's one of those things, but I know that, social media being what it is, everybody's going to just grab it and put into it whatever they feel about it. And I hate that for them because, again, I think one way you could look at a race like this, much like we had in Vegas, is, again, you got these teams out there that are capable of not only finishing the race under power, but finish the race under power within 6 laps of the leader. It takes so much for that to happen. Because there's just no margin for error. You can't have more. I mean, the biggest incident we saw the whole race really was the pit road incident with Allmendinger. Dropped him 2 laps down at the point that happened. And really even then stayed, I think only lost like 1 or 2 more laps between then and the rest of the race and fighting your way back into the battle there. You got, teams that are capable of, staying in competition as best they can. I know that NASCAR wanted parity with these cars, and whether or not that was, a goal that should have been accomplished or not, you still at least have that. So, again, it's not like we have a tail end of the field and everybody's 50, 60, 70 laps down. I know Chad Fincham got a whole lot of a ration from last week at Bristol for being as many laps down as he was. Well, the reason he was because they actually had something break in the right front of the car, and he had to go behind the wall for about 50 laps. And so they made it sound like when Clint Boyer was talking about it, they made it sound like he was losing 70 laps on pace, and that's just not true. He was staying up there, and even then was still able to try to kind of stay on the track and try to get through the rest of the race. Ultimately had another issue that took him out of the event there. And this Cody Ware thinks the same thing. But it was interesting to see last place play that much big of a role. You certainly don't expect it. And you certainly don't want it to be something where it's going to change the outcome of who wins the race. Ultimately, in this case, it was the case there too. But we saw a lot of it. We saw when Kyle Busch was the back of the field and getting lapped by the leaders. We saw Allmendinger's incident there. And again, Cody Ware getting on camera a couple times and then getting fresh tires and getting back around the leader. We saw that happen a few times in this race, not just with Cody, but with other drivers there too. So it's just another part of the element that I think, we're all watching this year with the chase, the chase format coming back and the playoffs going away and just adjusting to a new way of storytelling, something a little bit more traditional that offers, a broader view of what's happening throughout the field and not just shrugging our shoulders and be like, well, I don't know what happened there, so hopefully we're, getting down the road there too. Because again, even if this race finished under green as it did, and still had a pretty close battle between Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin to the checkered flag, I don't see anybody being really disappointed in that either. Did it really need to have, as if it were a choice, did it really need to have an overtime finish? No, it didn't need to have that to be a decent race there as well. The guys that were at the front of the field were still able to, compete against one another. And if the broadcast isn't doing a good job showing that, or they're not making that engaging enough, then that's something for them to work on. Not to say that NASCAR doesn't need to make adjustments to the cars, but again, it's the same balance that it seems like it's a weekly subject on this show. Everybody's got to be pulling in the same direction here to put on the best possible product, and that's another way to look at it. And indeed, we're going to get another look at that next week at Talladega with the stages changed around, making stage 1 now longer than stages 2 and 3. Is that going to curb fuel mileage strategy, or is it going to make the race more competitive at the end? That remains to be seen. But they're trying something, so we'll see what difference that makes there too. But that will be the story this next week at the same time. So, I almost feel like going into the Amp Lemon video right away because again, it does talk about the playoff system and the points and everything from there. I think I want to go into the O'Reilly race first because I don't have too much to say about that either. That's pretty much most of what I have to say about today's race too. While I do think that there were some interesting storylines and just tracking, what I like about a race like this where you have low attrition is anything that happens could be just a massive implication in the point standings. And that's the way the broadcast really needs to hammer on that too. If somebody crashed with 10 laps to go in this race, they were going to get last place because nobody else was going to, fall out of the event. If it was a single car accident, so if somebody just blew a tire in a different situation, like blowing a right front tire and putting themselves into the wall, which I think is what happened to Cody in this race last fall, that would have been immediate and it would have had dramatic results there in the points. We saw this out of Chase Briscoe with the back-to-back last place runs at COTA and Phoenix. That's the kind of thing that you're kind of on the edge of your seat for. It's like, it's not natural for this to always happen all the time where you have so many cars that are within a couple laps of the leader. And that's kind of the big thing. And then the more cars that are on, in contention, within just a few laps of the leader, the smaller of a mistake can have a much larger effect there too. So I think that's another way to, a way to look at that. And maybe that'll be another thing to examine there at the same time. But again, congratulations to Tyler Reddick. He went up there and took it. He had that little hiccup in the engine or whatever was happening, maybe running out of fuel, racing Denny Hamlin. Hamlin got the lead, looked like he was about to take it back. Then the caution comes out. Gets back out there and takes the lead back again. How many times does a race winner have to win a race? He found out that it was a couple more times than probably he wanted to do it. but he did pull it off. And I don't blame Denny Hamlin for being disappointed. I know that he had a dominant car. He, dominated just like he did in Las Vegas this year. Could have been just another win this season, but that's part of it. Anything can happen, and we need to embrace that rather than resist it so much. I think it's just culturally in this sport, and hopefully we kind of get back to that. Any rate, looking back to the O'Reilly Series race yesterday, Taylor Gray pulling off the win. I have to admit, my memory of this race had already faded so much. Aside from what happened at the very beginning of the event, that I kind of thought Brandon Jones still won it because he looked so good in so much of this event and seemed to be just cruising on his way to a victory. And it's still surprising to me that he ended up further back in the lineup there in the 8th spot there. But Taylor Gray over Sheldon Creed. Creed was making a good race out of it there at the end, much like we saw in today's race. So again, as much as the Cup car certainly puts on an inferior product in many respects on certain tracks to what the O'Reilly cars do, it's still nice that in both races this weekend, we saw actual challenges for the lead in the late stages. If we're getting that, then that's something closer to what we need to have on a weekly basis. You don't want to make it too easy, but you don't want to make it impossible. You certainly don't want to go back into the era of aero blocking and just making it just follow the leader. We can't have the 550 package kind of deal out there. So that's another part of that. Taylor Gray wins over Sheldon Creed. 3rd spot to Justin Allgaier. 4th to Jesse Love. Brent Cruz rounds out your top 5. Again, another great run for the newcomer. William Byron, one of the only 2 Cup drivers in the field, and Cole Custer, the other Cup driver, finishing in 6th and 7th. Brandon Jones, Sam Mayer, and Ryan Sieg rounding out the top 10. Sieg able to be up front for a few laps there and just hanging on to a lead lap finish there at the end. I thought for sure he was going to at least get a top 5 out of it. Unfortunately, that wasn't in the cards this time around there. But again, a solid event there too. In the meantime, this race, again, much more busy in the garage area, certainly from the very beginning of the event. Thank goodness Carson Kvapil is okay after a freakish accident down the back straightaway there. Ended up being had a lot of statistics that I added to the article that was posted last night, talking about other times that the driver that was a pole sitter, or in this case, was awarded the pole because of the storms that canceled track activity on Friday, times that they had finished in last place, or the car number 1, or things like that. So all that is in the article too. And also just having an incident this early in the event on lap 2. Corey Day takes the lead very quickly, and just like that, Kvapil finds himself in the middle of a very tight battle for 2nd spot with William Byron and Justin Allgaier. Allgaier makes it past just at the same time that Byron is kind of crowding Kvapil's left rear, and it just ends up with a bit of a crossed-up situation. Kvapil gets hooked into the outside wall right in front of Parker Retzlaff, pretty much handing Retzlaff, I think, one of his first real bad run that he's had this year in what's been a very strong season for him and the Viking Motorsports team. Just completely wrong place at the wrong time. Retzlaff gets back over to pit road, completes a 2nd lap in the process, and ends up classified ahead of Kvapil, even though Kvapil was the pole sitter there at the time. So glad to see him okay. It was, it was a bit tense. I thought Adam Alexander coming back in the booth did a fine job of not speculating and not talking too much over it when it was happening, when we didn't know exactly what Kvapil's condition was after that flip. But then, of course, once they, towed the car back over onto its wheels, you could tell at that point that, the driver was okay and able to move in the car, and I thought they handled that very well. So, again, I said the same thing with Adam after the Connor Zilic deal last year at Watkins Glen. When things get serious, he knows how to drop a lot of the goofiness that I always criticize him for. He tends to snap out of it pretty quick, which is good. And I'm glad he has that gear in him, because you don't see that all the time. And it's frustrating to say it in that context, because of course you don't want to see any kind of situation that's going to be so serious to bring that about. I just wish we saw that a bit more in other aspects of how he's describing the action out there, that it's not just, laughing and talking about which driver's birthday it is. That seems to be a larger cultural issue at Fox, because Jamie Little does the same thing. So that's where I feel it's more an issue of direction than talent. At least I'm coming around to that thought now. But good to see Adam back in the booth, by the way, on that. Did we ever hear about exactly what happened last week at Bristol? I didn't really talk about the Dylan Welch deal with him in the booth. I thought he did a fantastic job, but it was troubling at the very beginning of it, because he made it sound like it was something extremely serious that Adam was going through. I don't know if you guys can mention it in the chat there if it came up. I haven't heard anything new on my end there. I mean, just seeing Adam back in the booth, I'm presuming it's nothing too awful serious. But you know, yeah, so we kind of have that situation there too. But yeah, but I like Dylan Welch last week. I thought at Bristol, he kind of was a bit more of a calming presence in the booth. He seemed to kind of redirect everybody else in the booth to what was happening on the track. And, you know, I don't mind Jamie McMurray and Parker Kligerman, you know, being excited and responding to when, you know, somebody breaks loose or there's a wreck that almost happens or something like that. That's fine. You know, you can have like a Benny Parsons kind of thing, but you can't have everybody be Benny Parsons. You got to have somebody that's describing what's happening in there. And I thought Dylan Welch did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed his play-by-play for that race. And I want to make sure I give him his flowers on that because I didn't mention that during our show last week. But that was kind of the other story from there. But yeah, Carson Kvapil ends up out of the race. So a pretty open and shut story in terms of your last place battle on that one. And also high attrition in the opening laps, really. Retzlaff involved in the same incident. Luke Baldwin had been involved in an incident with spinning out Josh Bilicki right before the Kvapil accident happened. And Baldwin ends up out of the race, continuing a really frustrating stretch for the Hettinger team. They've spent entirely too much time in the garage area these last few rounds. Baldwin's wreck at Martinsville, and then also being the only Ford team out there with AM Racing. We still don't know what's happening with Nick Sanchez and the two-car organization there that pretty much just had one car this year with the 25. Not sure when they're planning on returning. We'll see about Talladega next week. I think that would be a prime opportunity. They certainly had a great plate car for how well Sanchez did at Atlanta back in the spring. But we'll see how things turn out, and that'll be something I'll follow in our entry list storylines feature later this week at the lastcar.info page. Austin Hill eliminated in a accident that had a bit of controversy as well. Jesse Love giving no quarter to his teammate as both of them chased each other to the apron on lap 38. Hill ends up spinning out. Looked like it was going to be a harmless incident, and then unfortunately William Sawalich picks the wrong lane and runs into the back of him there, and it ends Hill's evening and leaves Sawalich with some pretty significant damage that leaves him back in the order there as well. But the one benefit of these incidents that happened very early on, with the exception of Carson Kvapil's incident, is a lot of the tires from these teams in the bottom five went over to Mike Harmon's team. Harmon gambled on this particular race, and the gamble paid off this time around. Not having any tires really set up in their pit stall, and then being able to pick up tires from these teams that dropped out very early in the event before the first stage, or is it before the first stage was over? It was like right around that era. Oh yeah, before the end of the first stage, because that was 47. So yeah, I mean, all these guys were dropping out of the race, and they got tires in the pits, and Dawson Cram was doing really well, battling into the top 20, running ahead of some of the guys at Alpha Prime and the other like mid-tier teams. Great effort for him there, and kudos to the folks that were covering this. You know, I wasn't covering it really nearly as close on my feed here, but I'm so glad there were people that were interviewing Dawson and tracking what was happening there in the pack, because yeah, he was running solid up there and looking to get a lead lap finish. We saw with many of the cautions, nobody won the lucky dog because everybody was on the lead lap, so he was in position to really capitalize on having a good run. Unfortunately, they dropped a cylinder. They didn't want to risk tearing up their only engine out there, and they had to pull out of the event there as well, and ends up back in the 29th spot, which itself is already, you know, a pretty solid run for Harmon's team, you know, which has had a lot of struggles even qualifying for races. Back when we had 40 cars for 38 spots for a lot of the early races. Now, this time around, we had 37 cars in the grid. First short field of the season for the O'Reilly Series. First in the series, first for 2026. First for the series since Portland last year, the Portland Road Course, now off the schedule this year. So unusual. I really expected that, you know, with the unpredictability of this race and how competitive it is, that we would have seen a full field at the very least. But that was just not the case this time around. But again, it was much to the benefit of Dawson Cram and the Mike Harmon team. Unfortunately, just didn't turn out to be the ending that they would have wanted there at the same time. Looking at other drivers through the field, Dean Thompson just outside the top 10. Seems like, again, for as much as his teammate Harrison Burton continues to struggle in the number 24 car for Sam Hunt's effort, Dean Thompson is right up there and threatening for top tens almost weekly here. So a great effort for him. Corey Day leading 26 laps. This time again, not as close to the front there, losing a lap there in the closing stages there. But again, knocking on the door of him getting his first win there as well. It's shaking off some of the rust from the early part of the season. Another part to look at there too. Looking at William Sawalich salvaging a 20th place finish after the damage, the incident with Austin Hill, and throughout the rest of the field from there. And also other drivers that dropped out of the event. We had Anthony Alfredo with a blown tire, putting him into the wall. Blake Lothian dropping out there for the Joey Gase effort. Austin Green with an engine issue on pit road. Yeah, got very crowded in the garage area very quickly through that. I imagine that would have been a tricky one to follow there. But again, I'm still surprised that Brandon Jones didn't win it for sweeping the stages and looking as good as he did. I was working on the article kind of during the race, especially when you have something that happens at the very beginning like this. It just makes sense to kind of start putting that together. And kind of just seeing the 20, every time I looked up, the 20 cars leading, and then all of a sudden Taylor Gray's up there. I'm like, wait, how the hell did this happen? But that's why you got to run the whole thing. And as much as I don't like stage racing, I like that the third stage generally is long enough for something to play out, for a little bit of strategy. Although Talladega, of course, next week is going to turn that on its head. But that's another discussion for another part of the show here as well. But congratulations to Taylor for the win there, and capitalizing on another good run there for the 54 team right after Ty Gibbs winning his first Cup Series race in the 54 last week at Bristol. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say on that one there too. Kyle Sieg looked good for a bit. I like that he was getting some screen time in the broadcast. That was enjoyable. Unfortunately, didn't have the best of finishes there. Ends up back in the 25th spot there at the checkered flag. But that's another way to look at that too. But had quite a bit of action there right before the Carson Kvapil incident, just in the first two laps of the event. But again, glad to see that Kvapil is okay after that tumble down the back straightaway there as well. Going into other notes from this, we'll probably get into that other portion here. I want to get kind of my other notes here at the same time, so I'll pull those up here. Okay, I got my note about Dylan Welch. Let me just check the chat here as well. Okay, there we go. I guess we could talk a little bit about attendance in the races here this last week. I know last week I was very troubled by that picture that was posted showing how empty the parking lots were near what looked to be the main entrance at Bristol. I seem to remember going down a road like that when our tour bus back in 2007 kind of dropped us off, and that area was like just crowded. It was like Mardi Gras through there, and seeing that empty for the spring race was concerning. And then seeing the number of people in the stands. Now, of course, Bristol has a ridiculous number of seats, so if it looks half empty, that's still 70,000 people, 60,000 people. And I appreciate people bringing this up, talking about how other tracks that looked full but have smaller grandstands, again, that would fill the stands at maybe Darlington or Rockingham or some of these other venues there too. So that would be encouraging. If it turns out that wasn't as big of an issue as it turned out to be, that would be great to hear. I was hearing some similar concerns about Kansas today, and how much capacity the track had, and it does have very big grandstands, having visited there back in 2024, but it seemed like a decent enough crowd. It didn't seem troublingly small there too, but it's unfortunate they just don't show these attendance numbers anymore. I mean, during the sport kind of shrinking there a bit in the late 2000s and so forth, we lost that, and now, we don't really have a way to cover it, and everybody's just kind of looking at the stands themselves and just saying, oh, this looks worse than that year, and this is worse than that, and it's like, it's so hard to quantify that anymore. I mean, maybe that's something NASCAR could revisit. I don't know if the RTA or whoever made the decision is going to allow for it, but that would be another thing to look at there at the same time. Yeah, that's kind of another section there too. Okay, Jimmy, thank you for bringing that up about a relative possibly passing away for Adam. Yeah, well, if that's the case, then certainly condolences to Adam and his family there on that. again, I understand certainly if it's a family matter and you want to keep it private. I mean, I totally get that, even for public figures there. Again, talking about Ty Gibbs from just a couple weeks ago. I mean, whenever, whatever happened in Phoenix a couple years ago, we're going to find out. If we ever find out about that, that'll be up to him to determine. I think that'll be the same deal here too. So that's another way to kind of look at that at the same time. Okay. Let me go ahead and jump into, I want to talk about the Amp Lemon video. So let me go ahead and go into that, because I've already kind of put my foot in the door on it. First and foremost, great job that he did on that. I watched that earlier this week. For those of you who haven't checked it out, so some spoilers here if you haven't watched it, because I will be going into it here. The video there on Austin Dillon being the NASCAR's most chaotic driver, at least that being the hook, and which is intriguing itself, because I've seen other channels talk about Austin Dillon and, of course, his past wins and how all of them seem strange for one reason or another. Of course, the win at Richmond a couple of years ago. I was very impressed, as I tweeted earlier this week, how well he could come up with a simple theme that he's not just doing a video. It's like, his starting point isn't, I'm going to go ahead and tell you about the history of the point system and the history of Austin Dillon's career, and that's it. It's like, where's a way that I could kind of tie these together and have an overarching theme that would help you better understand it, that would help, the viewer, not just somebody that's really into the sport, but somebody outside the sport, being able to understand it. And it's a wonderful approach that he does on that. You see a lot of imitation from one channel to another about trying to kind of figure out what makes something work, especially if somebody's really successful. You see a lot of channels, for example, that copy John Boy's style because he's very successful over at Secret Base and all that. And they do that Google Maps style, and they play the smooth jazz in the background, and you got all these statistics and charts and stuff. And, there's others that kind of do similar styles, some quite well. Maple Boy does some very interesting motorsports ones, including his latest one on kart that I haven't watched yet. But I know his one on the history of kart that I saw did that very well. And that's the helpful part, because you can have ones where it really fits that style. And maybe it's a subject that John isn't as interested in, but maybe somebody like Maple Boy would be interested in. There's that. With Amp Lemons, with his, this approach, almost kind of approaching it more like an essay, literally. You always hear about video essays on YouTube. For me, I think about, just having to come up with like themes, and then, kind of, maybe it's a subject you're not as familiar with, but you're kind of chewing your way through it because, you're studying these different books or stories or whatever else that the class is about at that time. Just think of it in an academic sense. But then applying that to racing, applying it to some, way there that, could be an authoritative view of it, and also make it just easier to digest the material. I think that was a wonderful strategy with that. And I think, I really liked his Dale Earnhardt video. I will freely admit that the Earnhardt video is a big reason that I started making my own videos on my channel again in 2019, because I was like, wow, everything, when I was making the starting grid videos, everything was very, very new on YouTube, and the floor and the ceiling were pretty low. And, there wasn't really that much NASCAR content out there. And recording videos on a digital camera and stuff like that. It was much more amateurish in my time. But then by seeing like Amp Lemon's video and seeing like how far he went into it and how he kind of connected these different elements and used Earnhardt as a figure to show, kind of lead your way through NASCAR history, it was wonderful. And of course, now you got all these people that are, fans of the sport. Maybe they wouldn't have been fans if they hadn't seen that video. That's tremendous. And, I like, my second favorite video of his is the Road Rage one, where he, for one thing, he talks about Sears Point a lot, which is great. And I hope that that's attracted a lot of people to come out to that race to see the kind of physical racing that indeed we do still have out there. I'm already excited about that, coming up here in a couple of months. And tying that into Road Rage, that everybody, commutes somewhere, or just, get stuck in a car. Maybe they don't enjoy driving as much, and then thinking about how it doesn't really work very well for professional race car drivers. But I can see why in this one here that he took as much time as he did to make this video because there's so much more that's at play there, and it's a even larger story that he had to kind of work his way through to talk about the evolution of this point system, the understanding also of kind of the conflict between the drivers, the teams, and NASCAR itself, and all, and then the cultural effect, the damage really to see of what was done and what was caused by this point system there. It's not, in my viewpoint, I would think about doing like an opinion video, like I did with the Austin Dillon one there. It's very hard. It's very hard for me personally to do a lot of opinion stuff as much as I feel like I'm able to kind of just articulate it here on these shows here. But to try to make it understandable to an even broader audience, to say like, look, if you're a basketball fan or you're not even into sports, period, here's kind of what fans in racing have been dealing with. And you connect all the dots together and you show everything from the Joey Logano and Matt Kenseth deal and Kyle Busch winning the championship without running all the races, and Jimmy Johnson winning all the chase championships and then winning another one in the new format there afterwards, and all the heartbreak of other drivers that had been eliminated from championships. And just, it's like, and then by the time you get to Denny Hamlin's one, you're kind of expecting it. If you didn't know what was going to happen at Phoenix in 2025, you could kind of picture it already happening, and then you see it. I'd be really interested to hear somebody's viewpoint that wasn't familiar with any of that and sees that for the first time, and it's like, oh my God, this is insane. No wonder, it has to go away. You reach that conclusion on your own. Yeah, I just think that it was a wonderful way to express it, talking about the chaos of the sport. And again, we saw chaos today, not on as big of a scale, but a caution that happens at the very end of the race could just as easily happen in this race as anywhere else. And, and being critical of the mechanisms that are in place, it's worth having that conversation because you got a lot that you could point at. For me personally, a lot of the era that we've had with the playoffs, it blends together for me. It's very hard for me to remember, who won this race or who won that race, unless it was something really, really exceptional, like it was when Harrison Burton won at Daytona. First-time winners are always going to stand out very much more to me. But the way that he put it out there to show like, okay, this was the season that this happened, and this was the season that this happened, and then people made this adjustment, and then this happened, and then here's the effect of the new car. And I appreciated his restraint as well, because, again, you didn't have to go into all the safety issues of the new car and the concussions and everything. And like that, that was a whole other thing. There's just so much there. You just focus on the actual damage that the point system itself is doing. And, that the legitimacy of the sport is very much in the balance. So Slap Shoes expressed that in his video. Our Ben Schneider, whose video was referenced in the Amp Lemon video as well, spoke very much as much on that too, as well as the overtime process. Again, I've not minded overtime personally as much myself, because I remember back in 2004, back around that time, you had a lot of races that just seemed to needlessly end under caution. And the problem was, as I expressed in my video, there is a difference between, you just never reconciled having overtime finishes and freezing the field on the last lap of the race. That just never got reconciled. And thankfully, we're seeing more restraint. Indeed, even today. Didn't they say there was a spin on the last lap of this race too? Like, not the Cody Ware one, but there was another incident. I guess it was Van Gisbergen. But it sounded like that was happening. And then NASCAR didn't throw a caution for that either, which is great. Hopefully we'll see that. I mean, the real test is going to be next week. I think at Talladega, if they can find a way when there's an incident that is, maybe somebody breaks down, but they're well out of the way of traffic or something like that, allowing the race to finish under green as best they can. And again, I think if you let people race to the caution in the last 5 laps of the race, nobody's going to be complaining about people finishing the race, under caution after that point, because they'll still get that green flag finish. That's what we're trying to accomplish, is we're trying to have as much of the race finish under green as possible, and have that battle. And that's why Dale Earnhardt's finish is as amazing as it was in 1998, because it was a race to the caution flag. That's about the only thing I think that he could have emphasized a bit more in Amp Lemon's video there, because it's the one element here that always gets left out of the overtime things. Like, oh, we have to freeze the field. It's like, do we? We don't really have to. Not there at the end. We could do it for all the other cautions, and the race isn't over yet. But at the end, maybe treat it a little bit differently. But that comes down to officiating and consistency. And as we had discussion on social media this week, those are very hard things for the sport to accomplish there too. But yeah, and I really think that Empleman was right to point out how much he himself, through his videos, has made these stories more accessible to people that are that are not fans of racing, or just maybe not even sports people out there. I think I have to emphasize that. I think that is he's very right to point that out, because that's not easy. Believe me, I know that from my own experience. I've tried to make my videos more accessible. I've been thankful to get a couple of comments like that. I actually got a very nice comment on my Talladega video recently, where somebody said that they were engaged in it, and they got back to me with it, even though they said they weren't really into racing. And they said, really, kind of for their experience of it, it's more like, you're next to somebody that's really into it, and you're into it just because that other person is, but maybe you don't fully understand it yourself. And that's that extra element there. So, it's good. It's good. Much like where his video on Dale Earnhardt kind of got me to start making videos again, the more he's able to engage that audience, that's something else I can also work on too. And because again, yeah, you got people that are going to be trying to, fine tune their work out there. And there's only so much attention available in the world, especially these days. Yeah, that's something to take home on that. So, all in all, again, great job with the storytelling of it. I had to bring out the Austin Dillon shirt here today for that. I felt that would be a good tie-in with all that. I'd love to see if more people became Austin Dillon fans, or maybe, something like that too. I always, you always would hope that you get some more effect on things out there in the real world. And maybe there's something like that out there. So I think that would be great to see. And I look forward to any other NASCAR videos he does. I think that, again, I think that would be really good. I mean, he's got really good material on the channel, and he's just one of many other content creators that also produce great stuff. Again, mentioning John Boys and Maple Boy and others out there that do it. But again, that's his talent there, is able to make that connection. So that's definitely kudos to him on that as well. On that note, I will say that I'm moving ahead on my next video release, which is, again, the history of Slender U Figure Salon sponsorship in NASCAR, and the history of Clark Motorsports, which is a team in the late 1980s. I was working on that video again more this week. I posted a post to my Patreon last night. That video is going to be about 50 minutes long. I hope to have it done by the end of this month. I think that's a pretty realistic goal at this point here. So getting the video clips and photos and everything dropped into it. So I'm working on that. Brian Hallman, again, provided some fantastic pictures there on that I'm anxious to share with you guys, and some other materials that I was able to uncover as well for this program. And yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting video once we get that up online. I have other scripts that I'm working on too. Finished transcribing, used again the Otter.ai program there to help transcribe an interview that I completed for a new members only video that's going to be coming up. I'm thinking about actually making that video a 2-part video, where both parts will also be in the members only section. So for those of you that are YouTube members to this channel, you will have new content here shortly as well. So that's going to be something else we'll be working on through the summer here at the same time. So yeah, we're going to be getting all that set up here. Yeah, finding out where we can, where everything can kind of move from there. Let's see, I'm going to close those out. Don't really need those at the moment. I'm sure we don't have a call for inspection. I anticipate, I'm kind of surprised. Thank you for tuning in here today. We have 31 viewers in here. I wasn't expecting that many, because I know we got the IndyCar race in Long Beach this afternoon. And I know I don't usually cover open wheel stuff out there, so I'm sure there's going to be some drop off here from that. But I do appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and jump into our trivia section here in just a moment. And before I do that, though, I do want to express my condolences to the family, friends, and fans, to Juha Mittinen, who passed away in an accident at the Nürburgring this past week. There was a lot of discussion about the coverage of said story here this week, but that will, I think, be a discussion for another day there, but certainly condolences to his family and friends and fans as well. So I'm going to step aside here. I'm going to get something to drink here, and then we're going to go into the trivia portion. And if you have any other questions that I haven't covered from this week or anything else of that nature, we'll jump into that as well. So stay tuned, folks. I'll be right back in just a moment. Okay. All right, we got the skips and bumps here on the trivia deal here, and we're gonna do some trivia questions here to wrap up the show for this evening. Thank you again for tuning in today, here, folks. Kind of an interesting thing. One thing I want to mention, kind of a funny thing for this week. I found out another somebody else up in NASCAR has blocked me on Twitter, and Chad Knaus has blocked me on Twitter, and I'm kind of wondering what I did to, I don't know if it was just from maybe taking the pictures of Kyle Larson's car in the Vegas wreck a couple of years ago. I don't usually face that too often on there. I've been very fortunate with that, and I appreciate being able to still follow up with some of these drivers and teams. I mentioned John Hunter Nemechek there before on this show, and you know, I know that I did an article on his father's last place history, so maybe there's a reason with that. But again, you know, I'm not entitled to anybody's, you know, social media coverage there on that, but I thought it was a little funny because I am doing a video that's going to involve Chad coming up here is one of the scripts I'm working on, but that did come up, so I thought that was like, wow, like what did I've never even talked to him. I don't think I've ever interviewed him in person. I'm sure he's seen me around the garage area for how closely he keeps an eye on what's happening in Hendrick, and you know, that would probably be the connection there. That's my best guess. But yeah, whenever that happens, I always wonder what it is, because I tend to think that a lot of my opinions or whatever are pretty milquetoast. Like, I kind of look at some of my older posts, I'm like, yeah, no, I still agree with that, or yeah, you know, it's kind of like that. But yeah, that's fine. But yeah, it's too bad about John Hunter, because I've been very vocal in supporting him, especially last year. He's been off to a bit of a rougher start this year, but I thought last year I was very impressed with how well he did in the 42. But unfortunately, that's what happens there too. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about the ARCA race. Yeah. I didn't really watch that one live, but I heard about the whole thing with Cletus and his sidekick out there. Yeah, unfortunate deal with the blown engine, but he did a good job not wadding the car up. I mean, heck, there's got to be some credit to be given there, and we'll see what the next step for him is in the rest of his year. It sounds like he's going to be busy one way or the other. Ooh, Jimmy, I like your idea. Yeah, let's bring out. I wasn't even thinking about the avatar here. Yeah, let's bring out the 45 because it does have Adam Petty on here.
How many drivers today?
Let's do that.
Choose your driver.
I don't think we've done Adam Petty's car on here yet. There we go. Yeah, let's do that for the 45. I like that idea.
Number 45, Adam Petty.
If this is the driver you want, click OK.
There we go. It's got his mention of his win in the ASA race there. All right, well, let's do some trivia questions here, folks.
Today's game is played just like the board game. You'll move around the board and...
Again, I don't worry too much about that because I understand that sports psychology is a thing. I've been on the other side of that too. And I'm sure if there was somebody that was following last place finishers of rowing competitors when I was in college, I'd probably block them too. So,
we'll have a new race champion.
Alrighty. Well, we got the spree car here. Let's do.
Select a category.
Let's see what we got. Let's do a wild card question to kick off. We got Jeff
was used to describe Bill Elliott and Junior Johnson's collaboration?
Oh, I don't know if I changed the timer.
McDonald Land, the Dream Team, the Money Pit, the Nightmare Boys.
Oh, I gotta take off the timer here. I'm sorry, folks. We'll get that on the next one. Which one is it really quick? What nickname was used to describe as their collaboration? Dream Team?
The Dream Team.
There you go. I almost went to McDonald Land, but that would have been the Budweiser deal. Okay, hang on. Let's deactivate the timer. Hang on here. Hang on. Let's get that. Let's fix that. We need that timer off. Green, flag, pit, stop. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, let's try it again. We'll get one here without a timer, and we'll have that be our first question here. Let's get a wedge, and we'll start in the pits category here.
Answer this question correctly, you'll earn a wedge.
It's interesting. They take a little artistic liberty with the car numbers on these avatars here. Okay, first question. Here we go, folks. Pits category.
Which pair of tires on an NASCAR Winston Cup car have a slightly larger circumference?
There we go.
Front, inside, outside.
Rear, front, inside, or outside? Which pair of tires on a NASCAR Winston Cup car have a slightly larger circumference? That is our first question for the day. I do have Badger here as well. He is zonked out. See? How you doing, buddy? You doing good? Okay. There we go. Oh, my goodness. There we are. There he is. Oh, God. There we go. Yep. All right. I guess this is for right side, rear, outside, four. You're looking for which pair of tires on a NASCAR Winston Cup car have a slightly larger circumference is the question. Oh, yeah. He is out of it. There's too much excitement in the race today. So we'll put him back there. There you go, buddy. There you go. All right, we got guesses for fronts and rights here. So we got, oh yeah, well, it's saying inside or outside. So yeah, I would say outside there as well. Austin P. Foster, I think you guys got it.
Outside.
There we go. This is different for the Glen. Good point, Rooney Mac.
Take another turn.
We got that coming up here before long. I'm still getting used to that being in May. Not used to that yet.
Move to any highlighted tile.
Let's go back to tracks. There, get a good view of the little car avatar there. All right, tracks category.
What was once called the Alabama International Motor
Oh,
Speedway,
no, this is a timely one.
Dixie Speedway, Anniston Motor Raceway, Talladega, Fairgrounds Raceway.
It was once called Alabama International Motor Speedway. It was a Dixie Speedway, Anniston Motor Raceway, Talladega, or Fairgrounds Raceway. Got a round of wedge. Exactly. I like it, Austin. There you go. Go ahead and let you guys put your guesses in here, too. I'm also pleased to say that I've received another script from NASCAR Man History, so there's another video coming to his channel soon. I'll be recording that pretty soon here as well. I don't know if I'll be doing it tonight, but pretty soon. I would imagine I'll probably try to get that done this week. Depends. I'm going to be focusing more on getting that that Slender U video rocking along here, because I think it'll come together quite well. Just a matter of finding all the graphics for it. All right. Didn't have anything for show and tell here today, but maybe we'll have something for Talladega next week, so stay tuned for that. Talladega is always a good show. We always have a lot of people on there. Hope we had a bit of a drop-off here. Did we lose connection? I hope not. Dixie was already covered by Slap Shoes, wasn't it? Or was it Confederate? I'm trying to remember which track it was, too. That does sound familiar. But I think you're right. Yes, Talladega.
Talladega.
There you go.
You can keep going.
We can keep going. Let's do that.
You can move to any highlighted top.
Let's go back to this purple one here.
What driver won the most poles in a year when he was NASCAR Winston Cup champ? Lee Petty, Tim Flock,
Ooh.
Buck Baker, Richard Petty.
A little more challenging, maybe. What driver won the most poles in a year when he was NASCAR Winston Cup champ? Lee Petty, Tim Flock, Buck Baker, or Richard Petty? So you compare those four. What do you guys think? Got a nice little picture here of, it's like the Coke 600 here. So you got Skinner, maybe he has the No Bull 5 graphic here. Maybe Kenny Wallace or Ward Burton behind him. You got Steve Park down here. Looks like at Pocono, maybe. Pocono or Indy. Maybe Pocono, I would say. All right, let your guys' guesses come in there as well. All right, we got several guesses for Richard Petty. We got one for Buck Baker as well. Let's see. Let's do Richard.
Tim Flock.
Oh, a challenging one. Tim Flock. How about that? Yeah, that one had a lot of elements to it there. That could make it a little tricky.
You can move to any highlighted tile.
There we go.
What
Wild
is the
card
official
category.
pace car at the 1995 Brickyard 400?
Oh, no, there's an interesting one.
Hudson
Pace
Hornet,
car rules.
A Chevy truck, a Pontiac Grand Prix, a Chevy Monte Carlo.
Official pace car of the 95 Brickyard 400. The Hudson Hornet, Chevy truck, Pontiac Grand Prix, or a Chevy Monte Carlo. Which one indeed? Others are still here. It just shows one viewer. Yeah, that's okay. We'll refresh. Maybe I got to refresh the chat or something. Let me get unlock my mouse. There we go. Yeah, no, we're rocking along. We're rocking along. I just want to make sure I didn't lose here. Make sure lose connection, because whenever that happens, it's like it doesn't seem to have any issues playing what it's playing here, but then it'll be like, oh, nothing's happening. It's like, oh, can't have that. Didn't think it was Richard because he never won a lot of polls. Yeah, it's a good point. Well, your gut instinct was right on that, Jimmy. All right, I guess it's for the Monte Carlo. Somebody, yep, it was like a lot for the Monte Carlo there over the Pontiac Grand Prix. The Hudson Hornet or the Chevy truck.
A Chevy truck.
Oh, it was the truck. Didn't they make a die cast of it that year? I think they did, now they mention it.
Click on the tachometer to roll the die.
Because there's that one die cast that everybody has in their collection that's the 94 Brickyard one. And then they have the 95 one. I think that, maybe it was 97. The 97 had a show car too. But, yeah, I think that was it. There you go, Rooney Mac. You're right. Yep, pickup truck.
Select a category by moving to one of the.
Oh, we'll get another wedge here. Let's get one for drivers.
Questions for a wedge.
Wedge. Oh, we got pictures of Steve Park and Bobby Labonte.
41-year-old rookie made his move for the Winston Cup after 21 years in late models and All-Pro, including over 300 wins and 3 Alabama area championships.
So a little bit of
Stewart, Dick Trickle,
there we go.
Dan Pardus, Mike Harmon.
Interesting. Well, look at this list of drivers here. So what 1999 41-year-old rookie made his move to Winston Cup after 21 years in late models and All-Pro, including over 300 wins and 3 Alabama area championships? Was it Tony Stewart, Dick Trickle, Dan Pardus, or Mike Harmon? Some familiar names on this list. Very familiar names. Which one indeed? I think I know the one on this one. This one's a little harder than it looks. There's one answer that seems to stand out, but yeah. Anybody in here thinking of checking out the re-release of Speed Racer this week in IMAX? I'm not sure if I want to take that ride again. I did that when it first came out in 2009. It was pretty overwhelming. But for a generation, I mean, now that it's been, 15 years since then, it's wonderful that they're doing that again. And I see a lot of people being excited about it, so that's good to see. It's not one of my favorite movies, but it has some really good moments, for sure, that definitely make the experience worth it. All right, we got a few guesses for Mike Harmon. We got a couple for Dan Pardus. Among other problems, Dick Trickle was 49 his rookie season. Yep, and that was 10 years earlier in 89, wasn't it? So there you go. Alrighty, I think the Harmons have it, so let's go with Harmonator. There we go. How about that? See, it's interesting when he says 99 rookie, you think, oh, Tony Stewart, but he wasn't 41 in that year. And he didn't have the late model excellence that Harmon had in his career. So very interesting. Got another wedge.
Move to any highlighted tile.
Let's see. Yeah, getting all the roll again ones here. Go here.
What's the penalty for jumping the restart? Stop and go, 15 seconds, tail end longest line, 1 lap.
What is the penalty for jumping the restart? Stop and go, 15 seconds, tail end of the longest line, or 1 lap? That is the question. As we come down to it here. Yeah, and again, we're thinking late 90s penalties, so we got to put ourselves in that frame of mind here instead of what would currently be the penalty. Unless it hasn't changed, you can always consider that too. Yeah, I'm seeing a couple for stop and go. Wasn't enforced as much years ago. There we go. Tail end longest line. Seeing a lot for stop and go. Let's see. Oh, you guys got it. You're too good.
You can keep going.
We'll do a couple more here, and then I may duck out a little bit earlier since I got to write the article from scratch. That's the one drawback when you have last place battle take the whole race. You got to kind of pick things apart there afterwards. But we'll see, and we'll see if we get another change here in the meantime. Do we have any calls on inspection? I imagine it's probably still too early. Let me go back here and find out. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything here. I'll check here too, just to make sure. No, it's got the race here too. But yeah, we'll cut off here before the end of the IndyCar race as well for people that are watching that. And then we'll wrap up. I didn't want to do the show after the race because that'll be too late in the evening here for that. All right. Oh, we didn't do. Do we roll already? No, we didn't roll. Let's do it.
Select a category by moving to one of the
Let's get a wild card question.
What's
Ooh,
the name of the Kellogg's rooster on Terry Labonte's number 5?
Ooh, mascot
Foghorn,
question.
Rupert, Randy, Cornelius.
What is the name of the Kellogg's rooster on the hood of Terry Labonte's number 5 Chevrolet? Foghorn, Rupert, Randy, or Cornelius? Those are our options here. Talk about a different era in branding. You know, I mean, probably in a different time, you know, people would know that back and forth. I think about the Mongo dog that was on the hood of the Sirius car that Jimmy Spencer had in 2003. That was more unofficial. But this one here is the actual branding here. So what was the name of the rooster on Terry Labonte's number 5 Chevy? Foghorn, Rupert, Randy, or Cornelius? His friends probably call him corny. A lot of you are, you're too good. It looks like it's Cornelius. Let's see.
Cornelius.
There you go. Too good.
roll again.
Eli Gold says roll again, so we're going to have to do it.
Highlighted tile.
Choose any category you want.
We haven't done teams yet. Let's do that. I don't think we have. Ooh.
What memorable moment caused Jeff Gordon to lose the June 1995 Pocono NASCAR Winston Cup race to teammate Terry Labonte?
Oh, here we go.
Gordon blew his engine. Gordon ran out of gas. Gordon got a flat tire. Gordon missed a gear shift.
Alrighty, so in the history of Jeff Gordon losing races, which didn't seem to happen too often back then, what memorable moment caused him to lose the June 95 Pocono race? Teammate Terry Labonte, did he blow his engine, run out of gas, get a flat tire, or miss a gear shift? Which is the one? I'll go ahead and let you guys jump into that there too. The Estemo car is getting plenty of screen time. Well, it certainly seems that way. We got the Kodak car. We got the 97, 98, 99 Kodak Max car here. We got Dale Jarrett up here with the Quality Care car. And then, of course, Gordon here, middle. All right. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, probably be somebody else tweeting the update there than Pockrass, since he's doing the IndyCar stuff. That's very true. But, yeah, I'm not seeing it yet. But you're right. Maybe Gluck would be a better option on that. I don't get the emails. I know that a lot of people get it from the emails there. I've done that at the track, but I don't know a way to do that permanently. I'm sure it's something the NASCAR media page. I just haven't checked the box on it yet. But oh, that is okay. Like Mark Rebellious posting pictures from the 99 and 2000 seasons. Probably some of his are in this video game, probably. That'd be interesting to find out. Let's see here. Sorry, I was just checking something on social media there. I'm getting a hoot out of the Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan picture there afterwards. Little friendly rivalry between team owners here. So that's interesting to see. Okay, which ones you guys pick? You got engine blew up, flat tire, out of gas, missed a shift. Yeah, Reddick's doing a Bill Elliott 92. We'll see if he can keep the momentum going. We do have the means of the points tightening back up there. I think you guys are right about the gear shift. I think that was it. So let's go with that.
Gordon missed a gear shift.
There we go. You guys are too good. Too good. A lot of you got that. Alrighty. Let's do one more and then we'll wrap up. We'll do a little bit of a shorter show here today, folks. Let's pick a good category. Tracks. Let's just do NASCAR in general. There we go. With the Spree prepaid phone card car.
How many active drivers were on the top 10 career money leaders list in 1998?
Looking for a good number. This is going to be a good one to wrap up with. This is not quite straightforward.
8.
How many active drivers were on the top 10 career money leaders list in 1998? 7, 9, 10, or 8? I mean, it's wow, it's definitely a clear majority at the time, but how many exactly? How many active drivers on the top 10 career money leaders list in the 1998 season? Is it 7? Go ahead and put the number. You don't have to put the number of the option, but yeah, this makes it too confusing. Is it 7, 9, 10, or 8? And then we'll get that checked out there. Get my mouse back here. All right, I'm seeing a few guesses for 8, for 9, for 10. Which one of you said 7? There we go. Well, let's see. Well, I see a lot for these last 3 options here. Let's see. Let's do 8.
10.
Oh, it was all of them. It was all of them.
Click on the tachometer to roll the die.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. So there it is for the evening here. So again, still waiting to hear back on technical inspection here from Kansas, but pending, of course, the results of post-race inspection. Tyler Reddick will be your race winner, and Cody Ware will be your last place finisher. That'll be featured in an article later tonight, the Saturday article already posted. And we'll find out in short form. And then also, in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the IndyCar race from Long Beach. And in the meantime, that's going to be doing it for me today. So in the meantime, at LastCar on Brock is my Twitter feed. Patreon.com/LastCar on Brock is my Patreon. Feel free to check out other videos here on this channel. Next video coming up soon, hopefully by the end of this month. And we'll get that rolling in the meantime. Our next show is going to be next Sunday after the Cup Series race at Talladega. We'll be talking about the Cup Series race and the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race. We'll be talking about the action from that weekend. We'll do some more trivia. We'll see which avatar we pick for the game here. And we'll have some fun on this show here as well. So thank you so much for spending some time with me here tonight. And I will see you all next week. Have a great week, everyone.